Welcome to week 5 of our new interview series, Spotlight on Laurel, Her History, and Her People. This week's guest is London businessman Ernest Matt House. Ernest Matt, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, kid.
Ernest Matt, you've always lived in Laurel County.
That's correct.
Tell us about some of the changes that you've seen through the years in Laurel County.
Lots of changes, lots of commercial growth especially. Lots of residential growth. You know, there's a lot of fine homes here in Laurel County. We've got golf courses. We've got just about anything that you want. We've got it at some
level.
Some level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I understand that you were named after both of your grandfathers.
That's correct.
And what an honor, but that's also a lot to live up to.
It is, which I never, I didn't know my grandfather House. He passed away before I was old enough to know who he was. But I have a picture of he and I in his front yard, and I was probably 6 or 7 months old,
mm-hmm.
and the man looked like he was 80 or 90,
mm-hmm.
and he was only 51 or 52 years old. He died real young.
Right.
I think he died at 53.
They worked hard back then.
But he worked unreal hard, mm-hmm. and he came up through the Depression,
right.
and he probably knew what it was like to be hungry and cold,
right.
and
right.
Had a big family, raised a big family, and just a hard
working person, yeah. So, and
wow.
you said you didn't know, you don't remember him. Obviously, you were born. He died just after you
mm-hmm.
were born, probably a few months. But you kind of feel, you hear so much about them that you kind of know them through other family members.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a similar experience. My son doesn't remember my grandfather, Vic Williams. But he's heard so much about him, mm-hmm. and I have good memories of when Elijah was 18 months old when Pato died. But I have fond memories of Pato mm-hmm. enjoying that new baby boy in the family for those 18 months.
Uh-huh.
So even though you say you don't remember him, you still, there's a kinship there.
Sure, you know the history and the legacy and through other people.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about your parents, your grandparents. Obviously, you've talked about your grandfathers, and then we're going down to your family now.
Okay. Well, my mother was the only child of E.C. and Margaret Porter. The Porters owned E.C. Porter's grocery here in London, and that's where we all got our early training as far as working.
Stocking grocery shelves will really train you too for life.
My dad was the manager mm-hmm. there until he retired, and we were a working family.
Right.
And I think back about that time. Grocery business is real competitive, so it filled a great void for me transitioning from athletics into
Absolutely.
The work environment, because you compete every week in athletics. So that's the way it is in the grocery business.
Yes.
You're competing every week.
It makes sense.
To try to get people, you write an ad and you try to get people to come to your store.
Your store instead of other people's store.
And it was good. I think the thing, looking back, that really, made a big impact on me was how well our family could work together. Mm-hmm. And that's not always the case.
Not always the case
in family business.
It can be very rare. Yeah. So.
But we each, we had areas of responsibility. We knew what we were held accountable for.
Right, and you each found your niche.
And we found things that we enjoyed doing and could make a difference, and it worked.
Absolutely.
And we've been able to still continue to make it work. My brother Stuart runs it now, and he's done a great job.
I don't want to say too many good things about Skip. No, we've been buddies a long time.
But he's done really good, and you know, and I'm sure he attributes a lot of his success to the past, just like I would.
Absolutely. Well, my 8th grade class was the first to christen a new middle school in Laurel County, but you saw the dawning of consolidation when a new high school took in the previous Big Four, Lillian, Hazel Green, London, Bush. So what was, compare, you actually, were you a sophomore when that happened?
Sophomore, yeah.
So from a freshman at London to a sophomore at Laurel County, that was a big change, not just for Ernest Matt, but for everyone in your class.
Yeah.
And we're doing a history thing here, so tell us what that was like for you guys.
Well, just the sheer volume of students was overwhelming.
4 to 1. You were used to this many, and now you got 4 times that many.
You know, and I can remember the summer before we actually started school. All the teams were practicing, and you know, you were used to having starting fives in basketball with reserves at all these schools, and you know, there was only going to be one group.
Yeah,
you know,
and what's unfortunate in a way, I mean, the consolidation is necessary, and that's a good thing. It can be, but you know, a lot of good athletes, it narrows way down there.
It really
and some
filters
of them
them
starts to get left behind.
And you know, that was probably one of the hardest things for the kids coming up was where they figured in sports, because a lot of them were used to being.
Absolutely, yeah. So some of the starters were relished to a reserve role,
or some of them didn't.
Some of them didn't even. But the cream rises to the top. You know, usually the cream will rise to the top, as the old saying goes, and so you get a really nice team out of 4 teams. Mm-hmm. You know, and I
always tell the story. I can remember they had a night for guys that were going to be seniors, a night for a guy that was going to be juniors, and the same for incoming sophomores. And we filled London gym up. That's where we practiced. And I can remember Bobby Taylor and Raymond Reed were our coaches, and they said, well, we want to run a drill, you know, just run a drill. Mm-hmm. And we'll just randomly pick 5 of you guys to come out here. It doesn't mean anything. Well, they picked me. I was from London. They picked Jerry Harris, who was from Bush, mm-hmm. Doug Gilbert, who was from Lilly, mm-hmm. and then we had Doug Feltner and Bobby Parker from Hazel Green. So we had that mix, but our senior year, we were the starting 5.
Yes.
In basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, those guys probably had a little foresight.
They had a little foresight, I guess. But you know, they had to be real sensitive to keeping the demographics.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, and let everybody.
Yeah. Because you know, and I got a little bit of this out of the Coach Bowling interview that I did. You know, everybody wanted to beat London. It was London against that. You know, there was a very big rivalry between the 4 schools, but I was wanting him to compare it to North and South. He was like, it was more like London versus everybody else back then. To him, that's his vision. And he was coaching there at London High School, then transitioned to Laurel County, of course, from baseball, then to girls basketball with the inception. Mm-hmm. But so he went from the small school to the big school as well as a coach. But so that you saw the dawning of the new Laurel County High School, and of course, you know, been like that ever since.
And
now we've got 2 schools.
For those of us coming from London, one of the big things that we never missed school for snow days.
Oh wow!
You know, at
London. At London, yeah.
We didn't miss.
Yeah.
You got to school. You know, most everybody, the bulk of the kids lived within the city limits anyhow. Mm-hmm. And there were a few outliers who came into town
Right.
to go
So
to
each
school.
each principal could make that choice and decision at that time. Then, right? Is that what you're saying? Because wasn't it all a county school system, or
No, London was its own school system.
London was an independent
School system.
Okay.
And then when we transitioned to the consolidated system, the kids from London, we didn't know what it was like to have these big long snow breaks.
I wondered, because I had always heard that London at one time was an independent, like East Bernstadt, like Williamsburg, like Corbin, like Barberville. And a lot of them, when consolidation came, chose to stay independent. London did not.
They did not.
So that's an interesting tidbit there that a lot of folks don't realize, And I wondered when that happened. It happened with the inception of Laurel County High School. That's something that I didn't know. Well, also, Ernest, Matt, folks listening may or may not know you're a member of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame. Just tell us about your athletic career in general, and then we'll narrow down to some things here. But
well, I enjoyed playing everything, and that's the way we all did. Just about, kids my age coming through. You didn't have to be the star, but you wanted to play as many sports as you could.
Right.
And
now they want you
to specialize
and
start. They get a hold of you real early, and they convince everybody. They convince the parents that if you'll just play this sport, you'll end up at UK, and it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
But for me, high school sports was, just really, really good. We didn't always have the best teams. I mean, we were not that good in football. We had one good year in football. We didn't play very many baseball games because we didn't have a baseball field.
Right.
We took the corner of a football field and played, or either we played out where 84 Lumber is now at the old Greer field.
You're right. I remember that.
So, the facilities lacked. We didn't have a football field. We played at London's field. But we had the finest gymnasium in the state.
Basketball.
And,
But it's amazing that that they didn't have a baseball field then, and times were different then, financially for school systems and such. And now we've got one of the most prosperous counties and school systems in the state.
Sure.
I'm proud of facilities and
the facilities
two beautiful high school facilities.
Facilities are fabulous that they have now, and but probably my best sport, had I've had the opportunity to develop it, was baseball. But we would maybe only play, depending on the weather, 12 to 15 regular games, and then go right into the district tournament. Well, now they can play 30 or 40
Oh, they
games.
play 3 times that many or more, yeah.
And they've got lights, they can play at night. These new fields, they drain. A lot of them have this synthetic surface that just about lets you play anytime.
Yes. Baseball has certainly evolved
and
from the primitive way it was then.
It's a lot different,
yeah. So how, though, do you get, and I was looking over your bio as I was preparing for the interview there, but how, and in what it said in the newspaper coming out for homecoming week, how do you get 14 varsity letters? That's mind-boggling to a lot of people.
You just play everything. That's every one sport. Thing.
Yeah.
And
that fills a coat sleeve up real quickly.
Which I was a little bit unusual in that I was able to get 5 in baseball because I played baseball as an 8th grader.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in the other sports, I would get 4 in basketball, 4 in football, and then you ran track too.
You were a busy man. Even back then, you were a busy young man.
Stayed.
That's
busy.
an amazing thing. It's unreal and unheard of these days. I mean, you couldn't do that at all now. As you said, they narrow it down to one sport. Coaches want you to just play one sport, or maybe 2 if if you're an elite athlete. Vij got by with 3, but that's a long time ago. He's, so he's old. No, I'm older than him, but that was a long time ago. And nowadays, he wouldn't be able, even as good an athlete as he was, hard to get by with that.
Yeah.
These days, they don't do that. So at EKU, you were a first-team All-American. That's big. That's so. Do you? And we'll talk about playing there too. But do you still feel the bumps and bruises from that? From that?
I was so blessed in that I never had a major injury attributed to football in college. Now, I broke my leg in high school one time, but I didn't have anything than just the normal wear and tear. Now, I can tell that I've been tackled a lot and hit a lot, especially your shoulders, your knees. I've had a hip replacement. As I'm in my 60s now, and it's time to start feeling that.
It is. I don't know if that's all football or not, because I feel all that myself.
But I think a lot of it's just
definitely
age.
didn't play in college football, so yeah.
But there's a big difference, and there was a big difference for me going from high school to college, and now college athletes that they have are so much different than when I played. My offensive line, probably my senior year the average weight would have been 235 to 245.
Oh, yeah.
And now
100 plus.
You got to have
more.
They want 300 pounders playing offensive line.
Absolutely.
That can move.
Yeah, that can move.
That are quick and agile.
How many of those are you going to find? Yeah, so those are elite athletes.
And
a 300 pounder that can move is there's 300 pounders. Put that they can move on the end of it.
But they develop and work so much different. When I went to Eastern, there was in our freshman class there was only a small amount of players that had ever lifted weights. One group came out of the Catholic League in Cincinnati, and then we had a couple of players from St. X and Trinity in Louisville. So they knew about weightlifting. And
did you know about weightlifting?
Oh, no.
Okay,
no.
So it's just a daylight and dark difference from, and it would be, I'm sure, from high school to college, that transition. But I wanted to get a kind of a picture of how much different.
The thinking was when I played was, you can't lift weights; it'll ruin your shot for basketball. And you look at these UK players; they pump those weights like crazy.
Right.
So that's
been thrown out the window. My son played high school basketball. They lifted weights, and I always had the mindset that it might throw your shot off. Just because that's what I'd been taught and heard. Yeah. So, but and you played for a really good coaching staff there, and you guys had some really good teams there, and a lot of tradition there at Eastern. Which still holds up today.
Yes.
It's tougher now. But boy, those were great years at Eastern. Right on through the 70s, 80s.
Well, when we, through the 70s, 80s, and even right up getting close to the 90s, when teams came to Richmond, they expected to get beat. They just didn't know how bad.
And it's all a mental thing.
It's a
you've
mental
got to
thing.
jump on them from the get-go when you have that tradition.
That tradition enabled us to
Yes.
will that before we even snap the ball.
Absolutely. You build that tradition, and that creates that fear, and then, so you got the upper hand. Corbin High School is a great example of that, just a local example. You know what I'm saying? Coach Larkey's building a nice tradition at North Laurel, which was needed. But, you want them to fear you when you walk into your stadium, and that's Eastern. That's one thing I wish maybe in my lifetime, at least a couple of years, maybe we could see out of UK football. I don't know. You never know. I like our coaching staff now, and so let's talk about EC Porter's. I still remember the little country store across the street. I remember that vividly. But was it always an IGA? No. Okay, it was not. But I'm going to tell you something about EC Porter's. Your store thrived even with the onset of the chain stores like Winn-Dixie, Kroger, now even the behemoth that's Walmart. But how do you think that is? What do you attribute that to? Because it still thrives today. It's still a family-owned store. It's got the IGA tag, but it's a family-owned and ran store against. That's stiff competition when you have that marketing power behind you, with large chains that can have the money to name football stadiums. You guys compete with them on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
I think that, like you said, it's a family-run store, but
a lot of the family-run stores they didn't survive against that.
And I think we were real blessed that we had a good facility to work with. It was well maintained. When my grandparents and parents transitioned out. Mm-hmm.
There was a plan.
We had something to work with.
There was a plan in place.
We had something to work with.
Right.
And like I said before, my brother has done a really good job. And if you're a customer that shops at our store, and something is not right, they're going to find him somewhere.
Absolutely.
Or get a hold of him, and he'll
try to fix it for you. Yes, absolutely.
And and he'll correct the problem. And you can't do that at other places. You don't know where the top
dog is. That's right. Yeah.
And but I think the family thing, and then we've always hung our hat on our meat department. We still cut meat like we've always done. We don't get frozen meat in like some of our competitors and thaw it out and lay it there and say
it's all choice and fresh. Yes,
we don't do that. We still have butchers, and we train them, and
that goes a long way.
We've got Frank Hall, who still works some with us. Frank's probably worked for us 40 years as a meat, and people love for him. If he's working, they want him to wait on them.
That's the answer to my question. I mean, that personality and personable service, and keeping a guy like that happy working for you that many years, I think that's a lot of the success.
But we've got some long-term employees, that have been there a long time. Mm-hmm. And that speaks well.
It's still known as a great store to get quality meat. When did you cross the street? When was the new store built?
We did that.
Do you remember what year? Because
80 in the early 80s. 82 probably.
Okay.
81, 82, something right in there.
Okay.
But it was early 80s. We finally convinced our grandfather that.
Yeah. My memories of the old store were vivid, and you guys were overstocked there. Obviously, it was a smaller space, and I can remember the narrow aisles.
Well, it was so unusual in that you made one circle. You went down and around. It's like a horseshoe.
It was.
And you passed everything in the store
aisles.
that way. It was not an aisle. It was just like a
It was very
horseshoe.
unusual that way. Yeah.
And
So and it was well stocked, and not a lot of walking room, but man, everybody shopped at Porter's.
And people just got in line and waited.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but back then times were different, and I've had different interviews where folks have touched on the subject of how times have changed, and people are always in a hurry now, and we've lost our patience. And back then, you didn't get in a hurry. You went to the grocery store you wanted to because you wanted to go there and didn't mind waiting. You know what I mean? It's just a different day and age now, and you have to factor that in when you're trying to market a product. You have to factor all those things in. Mm-hmm. But I understand now. You own the building that we're sitting in now.
That's correct.
Beautiful building. It's the James Rose building, Jim Rose. What a great man and great family. And I'm so glad that you all named it after Jim Rose. But beautiful building, and I want to tell you something. I walk in your office, and it looks like Reeser's decorated. Am I on to something there?
Yeah, that's how it's happened. And the floors 3 and 4 look like this too. She's done them.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But what about your other business ventures, though? You own this building, and then you've divested. You still own Porter's, but you tell us about some of your, because a lot of folks don't know.
Well, I've gotten into where we're at today is one of our offices for the healthcare business. We have a company called Independent Opportunities. Started this in 1999, and we provide care and services for people that are disabled or mentally retarded or mentally have a mental illness or a combination of any of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And with the medication that is afforded us now through the pharmaceutical industry, a lot of those folks who had been institutionalized don't need to be that way anymore if they'll take their meds. They can live in the community. And we own 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. We have a caregiver, put 3 people to a house, and we've have done well with that. We provide a great service.
Absolutely, I was going to say, and I got to know one of your one of the folks there through when I worked at WKFC doing morning radio there. He listened every day, and whoever his person was there wanted to know if he could come in and do some stuff with me and meet me and maybe even put him on the air, because they said he was continually mimicking me like all day long, wherever he was. He had that down pat. And so I wanted to meet him, and I was touched by him and his story and the story that led to the independent opportunity that he was given was very moving. I won't go into it all now, but I was moved by that, and I'll always think fondly of that young man and his story. And I don't know where he's at now. I lost touch, but I even tried. That Christmas, we got him some stuff that I thought was kind of. He was a big radio fan, and he was a fan. And so those things, and that guy, I could tell that whatever independent opportunities had done had made a big difference in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have lots of success stories associated with this company. As far as making money, it hadn't been a big money maker, just because we're funded by Medicaid, and Medicaid is so strapped for funds that this July we got our first increase for services in 15 years.
Wow.
So imagine the cost of everything, how much it's gone up, and you just eat it.
You have to eat it. Yeah, you have to absorb that.
And
so that's a great company.
It had gotten to where we were really just swapping money to keep it open and take care of our folks.
But there are intangibles involved in a company like that money can't buy. As I said, this fellow, it gave him a chance at a life he wouldn't have known.
We have some great stories. One of the things that we have found out is a lot of our folks can work, and they can't work 8 or 10 hours a day, but they can work maybe 3 or 4 hours. Their attention span,
right,
and be very successful doing that.
Yes.
And we've had the support of a lot of employers in the area, which we do this same thing in other towns too.
Folks will see these people be working and not know that they're the independent opportunity. Yeah.
Well, and there are other people that do what we do too. Mm-hmm. So you never know where they're from, but
that's a good thing.
It's
it
been
really
a good
is.
thing.
it's heartwarming. Well, I want to congratulate you on being named Man of the Year for Laurel County Homecoming. It's certainly well deserved. I will say that. And now Kim isn't one up on you anymore. I still remember I was 9 years old and watched her win out at the park, and she won the Laurel County Homecoming. It's always a big deal, and I don't want to slight the present Laurel County Homecoming. Just times have changed, but that's still, that Saturday night is a big deal.
Oh, winning that amphitheater full of people.
Yeah, it's those are magical
if the
times.
weather was good.
But now, of course, Kim's father, R.D. Reeser, and my grandfather, E.V. Williams, they were first cousins, and so she definitely had some far-reaching family support, on that 1974 August night. But my daughter Jazz was crowned Teen Miss a couple of years ago, and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of pride follows that. I mean, it's just a great thing, And as I said, those days of homecoming were very magical. And I told somebody on the homecoming committee the other day, we got to do what we can to support it and keep it going. And yes, there are certain things that always need to be honoring folks like you. They need to keep doing that. Absolutely, in my opinion, they need to keep that going. The Saturday night pageant, it's a beautiful thing, and I long for the days when that hillside's full again, and you never know, you got people in the right place doing the right thing, and so it's just but you can't describe, and when I ask people like you, compare the old to the new, it's just a lot of the new is great, but we're losing some of our traditions, and that's kind of sad.
Well, I think that Chicken Festival has taken a lot of that.
Yeah, it has. It has.
A lot of the people that would participate and do things, but they're just more. Our time. I know lots of young families where mom's going here and dad's going here with kids, to soccer over here and basketball over here or something at church or something. And people are just busier.
It's the busiest time. They are.
We're busier than we were.
Yes. Times have changed. Yeah. But those parades and everything, and they still, the parades are still beautiful and wonderful. But folks, I guess this is my pitch to you. Get out and enjoy the homecoming. It's a beautiful place, the amphitheater, the park, and those Sunday singings, my family was involved in. Man, that hillside up there, people bring their lawn chairs, and it was a sea of people out there, under those trees. And, we've traded some things for I guess, prosperity technology or whatever, but it's not just Laurel County, it's everywhere. But those were good days, and I'd like to appeal to folks, enjoy the homecoming. It's a great tradition, and there's room for it in the Chicken Festival too to thrive. I think, I really do. So Ernest, Matt, I can't thank you enough for being our guest today on this. We're going to archive some of this stuff. Wouldn't you love to have a video that you could go and watch? Of course, this is hypothetical, but of your grandfathers sitting down and talking to them about the early 1900s and how things were then. And I mean, so this is something that we're going to try to leave behind for folks. This will outlive all of us, these interviews that we're doing.
That's great.
And
you can look around my office and you can see pictures of grandkids everywhere. So
that's a great legacy
that would be
too.
Neat. We got grandkids now and grandkids on the way.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's now we can't leave without talking about the ones on the way. So now that it's out there, go ahead. You were sharing off camera with me, but you got 3 grandkids coming up.
Got 3 that will be here between right at the end of September, first week in January.
Yeah.
And
you can't hide the fact that you're thrilled about it because the grand gives it away.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, we're the on-call babysitter.
Yeah.
It seems like the kids never call and say, "Do y'all have anything planned?" they just say, we're going to bring the kids on over, you know. But
I'm going to tell you something.
We've canceled stuff all the time, you know, to be with those children.
I look forward to that time in my life. I do.
Yeah.
I don't, not right now, but I do look forward to that, you know. I really do.
But
I think I'll be the on-call guy.
My two oldest grandsons, they're big enough this year. They're both 7, and they're going to be, I hope to be able to take them up to an Eastern football game.
Oh, yeah.
And
man, I was up there every home game for 3 years.
For
back
Glenn.
in the I didn't miss a home game, and usually had Israel with me. That's our other cousin, and he was relatively young then. He's probably a middle schooler, I think, probably at that time, and those are good memories for me, and it bonded the three of us even more. I mean, which he's like my little brother, you know. We didn't know any different back then, and so is Israel. So it was. We still talk about that. I was visiting Israel recently, and he lives in Florida now, and we were talking about those days and those times, and good stuff right there. Yeah.
So I'm going to get them started with the ball games, and at present we only have one little granddaughter, and she told me
they'll love those games.
She said, do they shoot that cannon off? And I said, yeah, we want them to shoot that cannon off.
Yeah.
She said, well, I don't know if I'll go.
That Bill's, that's funny.
She said, do they shoot that cannon?
That Bill's tradition, though.
And I think they do it at North, which, you know, Tony Blake's a cheerleading coach out there.
Yeah, right.
And so she's out there some, and she doesn't like that cannon.
Oh, I love the cannon. Yeah. See, I do the PA out there. I think I'm going to maybe wrap it up after this. Just make me 10 years, but yeah, it's fun, and I've been able to hear the cannon a whole lot in these 10 years because I came in when Coach Larkey came in, so yeah, he's had some success. But
he's done a good job. You know, his dad was my first football coach.
Well, he wasn't my first, but he coached me.
And he was a student at Sue Bennett.
And he was coaching you.
He and Don Rogers, who used to be president of Cumberland Valley, he and Don had played ball at London High School.
I did not know.
And they both went to Sue Bennett. And here we had, they called it junior high. It was 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yes.
So you had to be 6th grade before you could play football. And they didn't have a coach. Something fell through or somebody backed out. And Lawrence Cool got 2 of his guys to come, and they were my first coaches.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah. So, and Tom, what a tradition he's built too, you know, as well. But I did not know that Tom coached you. Yeah. That's amazing. Ernest, Matt, it's been a pleasure.
Okay,
I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so this has been Spotlight on Laurel, her history and her people. We've enjoyed speaking with Ernest Matt House today. And join us next week. Our guest will be Charlie Pennington. Thank you.